Diplomacy is a huge part of any Total War game, despite how much of an oxymoron that might sound like with a name like Total War. Setting up trade agreements, alliances, and many other fun tools are crucial to helping solidify your borders and economy. In Total War Warhammer, diplomacy had always been lacking, especially compared to newer titles like Three Kingdoms or Troy, which had revolutionized the diplomacy menu, or even earlier entries like Rome or Medieval, which had just more granularity. That has all changed here with Warhammer 3, and that is the subject of this video today. We'll be going over every little addition to Total War Warhammer's diplomacy menu, and a lot of it's such a huge breath of fresh air, especially the alliance portion of the game. Making a military and defensive alliance is finally something worth investing in with the AI. In my typical fashion of upfronting the knowledge within my videos to help determine if you want to stick around, let me give you a brief idea of what has changed. So right out the gate, settlement trading is in. You can trade or demand settlements from the AI, which is just huge. Also, the quick deal button from Three Kingdoms is also a part of Warhammer now, allowing you to do a bunch of diplomatic options in a sweeping motion versus just clicking each faction and doing it manually. The biggest change, though, is the way the alliances work. You will now have the ability to build outposts in your allies' territory, bolstering their defense and granting you options to recruit from their faction, like their units from their faction. This is an awesome way to get the other faction's units in your army, all while using a new currency system and quest system linked to the alliance to help increase said currency. So that's the kind of quick overview of what we'll be talking about, but if that's all you wanted to know, hoping to experience it for yourself, then you're free to shut the video down. Before you do, don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe. I cannot tell you how much that helps the channel. But it is important to note here, guys, that this is an early access build, and as thus, some of the numbers here might change before launch. I wanted to be transparent with that up front. Also, keeping with the transparency, I clearly have full access to the game, but I cannot talk about or show off certain things until their designated embargo date due to a NDA. So again, I just wanted to be upfront so you guys know anything that I allude to, I just probably can't talk about, or maybe I'm just trying to avoid it because, again, NDAs. But before we get started, if you have not yet pre-ordered Warhammer 3 and intend on buying the game, you can support the channel by using the link to my Nexus Store. Nexus provides Steam keys directly from the developer, and I get a cut of every sale, significantly helping keep the channel alive. But let's get started on the Diplomacy Rework guide for Warhammer 3. Starting out, here we are at Miao Ying's campaign. So let's go through the quick deal, the newest mechanic brought in from Three Kingdoms and from Troy into Total War Warhammer. By bringing open the diplomacy menu, we can see a lot of what we typically see when we look at the diplomacy screen. Stuff's a little bit more apparent, in my opinion, and it's got a little bit better outlining on a lot of things, a little bit easier to understand. You get your reliability rating over here, a little bit more transparent, stuff like that. Let's go ahead and press this new button down here at the lower left called Quick Deal. Boom, there we go. And we can set this up for, hey, non-aggression pacts, for trade agreements, for military access, for defensive, military alliances, confederations, and lastly, peace treaties. And then we also get the likelihood of this deal kicking off, of course, right? So we can see, hey, 2.4 very high likelihood of success on anything that's pretty much a positive number. 0.0 is actually okay to have a high likelihood of success. So let's go ahead and click the Celestial Loyalists for initiate diplomacy, and it automatically pops military access into there. We see we also have a good chance for military trade agreement, so let's go ahead, just normal trade agreement, let's go ahead and pop that in. And then we have some buttons here at the bottom. So we can do a balance offer. So let's just go ahead and press defensive alliance. And let's say we want this to go through, we can try and force it by doing a threaten, or if it's close enough to the threshold, we could do, let me see if I can do that. Okay, that won't work. But you can actually try to bribe this in using money. There's certain ones, like let's say here, I don't think there's anyone's close enough for it. Yeah, unfortunately not, but let's take this, for example. We can go ahead and balance the offer, and we're going to pay them to then instead get that trade agreement. So this allows you to kind of take advantage of anything that's pretty close to that threshold and try and bribe it in. And it seems to be anything that is not this like ultimate, let's see, anything that's like not this deeper red has a chance to allow you to bribe into it right here. So here's the Imperial Wardens. We're in quick deal. We'll go ahead and press balance offer, and we can pay into getting that military access. But we can also throw in the trade agreement and the non-aggression pact here. Go ahead and have that happen. Boom, it's all done and taken care of. Quick Deal is just so nice to have things just succinctly work for you, just like we've gotten in the past with Three Kingdoms and with Troy. Again, we can see now, oh, you know, Confederation, Military Alliance, and Defensive Alliance, those are pretty far away for this. Let's go ahead and pop out of here. And let's other trade agreements we can do. Well, Celestial Loyalists, let's just do that quickly. Hey, you know what? Military Access, damn, done, over with. It's just a much better screen than having to manually click through each and every faction, hoping I can do it based off of their overall opinion of me, right? In the past, we would just go, organize this by attitude and just go down the list. Who would accept this? Now we don't have to do that. Way more succinct, way better. And I think I've said that word like 15 times now. So let's move now into some other things like the threatening mechanic and how that works, as well as the alliances. So jumping ahead, I think it's like 3 or 4 turns here, we see a unit of beastmen encroaching upon our territory. And in the past, you kind of just had to deal with that. Like, it just happened, and then you knew they were going to attack you somewhere, and you just had to deal with it. If they were a neutral faction, or they had a non-aggression pact with you, or they were allied with you in whatever way, shape, or form. Well, now you get this really cool button here, right here, that says send a warning to the trespassing faction to leave your territory at once. If they fail to leave in 2 rounds, you can declare war on them without having to suffer treachery penalties for breaking non-aggression pacts and trade agreements. So this is awesome because it allows us to real easily deal with someone that's transgressing on your property. That's a weird way of saying it. Trespassing in your territory, and just jump right into a diplomacy with them without actually jumping into a new screen. So I press this button, boom, done. The warning's been issued. I don't even have to do anything outside of that. So after 2 turns, that warning will go through all the way, and I can go ahead and attack them without worrying about non-aggression or trade agreements. So if I double click on them, I can see by hovering over here that it shows me relation, trespass warning for the Red Horn tribe, gives it a -10 to the relation. So a very cool little mechanic built into this. So one thing too is also the threaten mechanic, as you can see right here. We already saw the balance offer one, but the threaten one is different. So let's go ahead and let's sort this by quick deal. Let's look at here, Western provinces, non-aggression pact, pretty likely to go through. And it's at -0.2, right? Well, I can threaten the recipient in an attempt to force the deal. This will result in war if rejected. The threatening counts as an act of treachery. So let's go ahead and do it. So they reject. We're automatically at war with them, right? Just jumped immediately into war. Well, that's their enemies. I don't know why I highlighted that, but you can see now we're at war. So what that does then also lowers our reliability because they were already part of our going trade agreements, right? And what's nice here is in the past, we really had no idea how reliability truly weighed upon decisions. So let's go ahead and open up diplomacy here with the Burning Wind Nomads. If I hover over this likelihood of success, it now shows me trustworthiness is causing the lion's share of the issues here with my diplomacy with the Burning Wind Nomads, -3.7. So it's nice to see that. I'll personally, I have not found threatening useful once. I would hope it was based off of strength rank and their strength rank, but I have not really found a use for it because I never want to just voluntarily jump into a bunch of wars like that. So I've never really used it, but at least now I can see how my trustworthiness is being applied to any kind of diplomatic situation. I just use threaten to kind of drop my trustworthiness to an ultimate, to a pretty low point. But we also get the ability to join wars and stuff like that and throw in payments. Even though this is a little satchel, it's strictly just money. I can't offer them anything like items or anything like that. But let me now jump over to some alliance play because that is really cool and really different. Back in the diplomacy screen, we can see we're talking to the Imperial Wardens, who we have probably the best relationship with currently. And we have this other button here called War Coordination. So obviously, it's going to allow me to coordinate military efforts with your allies or vassals. Let's go ahead and set up a defensive alliance. So this will work differently than a military alliance. As we always know, defensive allies will just kind of protect you if you get attacked. Also, they can coordinate their military efforts via war coordination and can also construct outposts, gaining limited access to their units. So let's go ahead and propose this offer. And then I'll go ahead and go through. Cool, cool, cool. Let's go ahead and look at them again. Imperial Wardens, and we'll press War Coordination here. So this brings up some options, some pretty juicy options. So for one, we have this new currency called Allegiance. And Allegiance is what's going to allow you to have your allies support you, allow you to buy their troops, whatever it is. And it will increase over time, and it can be based off of missions. We'll get to those in just a second. So as a defensive ally, I've got two options here. Set target, where I can select, clear, or zoom to the target that I want to actually have to do the damage to, or construct an outpost. So the way outposts work here, construct, upgrade, or move an outpost to recruit some of your allies' units. And let's go ahead and look at this one. Pome seems to be the one that will give me more recruitable units, right? It shows me the units that will be built, but look at this. So construct an outpost in the settlement. This will provide recruitment of the listed units from your ally using Allegiance as the currency, and will provide the settlement's garrison with additional units. So it'll take 3 turns to set up. And if I look at this here, it says provides ally recruitment of a selection of units. Ally recruitment is expensive outside of friendly territory. So being in that friendly territory makes recruiting those units much cheaper. Casualty replenishment rate plus 2%. But here's a cool thing too. For this location, it grants 2 Jade Warriors. So it allows me to actually have those Jade Warriors help out in the defense of this location, especially if it's one that I just don't want my ally to lose. So that is a really nice little ability there. And it gets even better when you are an actual military ally. So let's go ahead and jump forward here to being in a military alliance with the Imperial Wardens and have constructed an outpost. So let's jump ahead 3 turns. Now that it's been some turns and we are a full-fledged military ally with the Imperial Wardens, let's go through all of our options properly because now we have a lot more to talk about. So for one, when it comes to setting target, it actually costs you allegiance. You can see it takes 10 allegiance and it depends upon the actual target. So cheapest available target is going to cost you 10 allegiance. And of course, there's no guarantee that they'll actually attack that target. It's just like Warhammer 1 and 2, but at least this way you have a clear-cut idea of what's going on, what targets, so on and so forth. You'll see here it says, if the target is an enemy settlement or force, your ally will try to attack it, while if it's one of your own armies or settlements, they'll try to protect it for a limited amount of time. There's no guarantee for their assistance as they may have other critical strategic issues. But to circumvent that, you have Request Army now. So you can spend 62 allegiance in this case to have this pretty small army come to your aid. But most importantly, you gain control of it. You use this army. So gain control over this army for a number of turns. The ally will regain control once this turn or once this time runs out. If the alliance is broken or if the army's lord dies. You cannot request an army led by a faction leader. So it's cool to see here that you actually get the ability to request one of those armies to come and help you out, one of the existing ones. So you see an ally who's got 2 really strong full stacks, request one of them that's not led by the faction leader. It's going to cost you a lot of allegiance, but at least you'll get actual control of it. And if it's a pretty passive ally who's having that allegiance build over time, it's a great way to just kind of use a dump of it. And we're going to get into how you can bolster your allegiance once we get to ally missions. But moving into outposts, we've constructed our outpost here, but we now have the ability to upgrade it. So looking here at the bottom, 2% casualty replenishment. Ally recruitment is expensive outside of friendly territory and provides ally recruitment of a selection of units from the faction's local recruitment. Let's move up to this next one. Now we're pulling a selection of units from the faction's global recruitment. Allied recruitment is expensive outside friendly territory still, and casualty replenishment rate is 3%. Moving to our last one, boom. We now get even further unit selection from the global recruitment pool, and allied recruitment costs outside of friendly territory is reduced by 50%. So otherwise, if you're in the friendly territory, it's much cheaper to recruit them. You just simply have to be in the encampment stance or within a garrison. Obviously, you can't do that in friendly territory, but still, encampment stance is quite easy to do. You can just do that, you recruit them, but now you get this discount outside of their territory, which is great. Also, you're providing a nice ample garrison to them, and you get casualty replenishment if you're helping them out on their own territory. So you can see how this progresses its way up. We'll go ahead and build that. You can also move it or demolish it to a different location, demolish it or move it to a different location, whichever you so wish. Let me go ahead though and jump out of this screen and jump over to my army. So I've just set up at the snake gate. So let's go ahead and click Allied Recruitment, and you can see I can pull all of these units because they're the local recruitment pool from POME, since we're only at Outpost level 1. And I simply pay the allegiance cost for any of these, and they would recruit just like a normal unit would, because obviously I'm recalling them from that location, and I can see their allegiance where they are. You know, this unit is provided to you by your ally Imperial Wardens. If your alliance ends, and as a result of you or your ally breaking it, the unit will be disbanded. So if you have armies that have a lot of these allied units, you know, you're trying to get a lot of different things going, breaking those alliances will compromise those units for you. But that's just to give you an idea of how that works. You still have to pay the upkeep for them as usual. In fact, let's compare upkeep for you. So here, this guy would be 125, and this guy right here is 115. So it is a little bit more of your standard upkeep for that unit, but at on the other hand here, you're pulling a unit that you would not normally get access to. Now, the last thing I do want to talk about here is, jump back into diplomacy, is this little ditty, the ally missions. So they will offer you missions in the form of basically bounties, right? Defeat an army, led by Lothar here. Defeat this guy here. Defeat this army. You'll have other things to defend locations, to take locations. A lot of different things that allow you to get differing amount of reward. You can see here 12, 15, 14, 13. This is a great way to take to boost a lot of your allegiance, so you can maybe recruit a ton of stuff or request armies. You've turns remaining to accept, you only have one. So these things will cycle as more enemies come in and out of your territory or their territory. Different requests will appear, and it'll give you a thing saying, hey, there's a mission request. If I jump out of this screen, you can see right there it says ally mission available. This ally has requested your assistance. So a lot of really cool, fun tools when it comes to your ally and how to use them in Warhammer 3, and I just love it. I absolutely fucking love it. So the last thing I'm going to talk about real quick is settlement trading. It's very quick and easy, but just requires a little bit of explanation. Okay, so the settlement trading in Warhammer 3 is pretty cut and dry, pretty self-explanatory, but just to kind of show it off really quick, we're going to initiate diplomacy here with the Celestial Loyalists, who are not close to my faction. And if I hover over this, it tells me exchange a settlement with this faction. Settlements offered must be adjacent to the other faction's territory. So a good example would be this faction's so far away from me that I cannot trade settlements. But if we jump into trade with, say, this faction, the ones with our good bros here, the Imperial Wardens, we can trade settlements. So I can either straight up swap settlements here. So I take this from them and I give them the mines, or I just can outright hand it to them. So a really good example of one I would want to do this with would be the Terracotta Graveyard. That is within their territory. So let's go ahead and just jump into the map here. You can see the Terracotta Graveyard is owned by them almost entirely, right? The province itself. And maybe I just don't want to split the force of my ally, and down the road I'm probably going to confederate them anyway. So jump into here, trade the settlement, and I would probably give them that settlement. But let me just show you how this works. We'll do the mines and we'll demand that, see how it goes through. Okay, that doesn't have a chance of happening, but this, go ahead and we can just gift it to them. We'll just do it just for the sake of the video. And there you go. They take it over. They're in full control of it. I lose everything there. So if you have a lot of border gore going on, when you've got little pieces of individual settlements and you just don't want that to happen anymore, you actually want to hold nice, whole, succinct pieces of territory, you can now trade those settlements and have that all kind of get taken care of very, very easily. So I'm really, really excited for you guys to jump into the diplomacy. If you have any questions about some of the things I maybe glossed over, I didn't go over in depth, feel free to let me know in the comment section below. I'm more than happy to jump into as much explanation about any of these mechanics that I maybe didn't touch on. For the most part, though, everything else is very similar. You can see the trade, you can see their disposition, all these things. If you've played Total War Warhammer 1 and 2, you'll expect these same things. And if you have not played any of the Total War Warhammer games, I promise everything in the diplomacy is super self-explanatory. This is just some of the stuff that's a little bit more nuanced and granular coming into Warhammer 3. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.